Hey everybody, welcome to Admit One. Today we have the co-founder and CEO of Umba Daima, a creative NFT studio which also houses Black NFT art and unseen gallery. Before becoming a tech and art entrepreneur, she was a former teacher and community activist who eventually became a software engineer working at companies like Mailchimp and Vox Media. In February of 2021, she left to start Umba Daima, focused on building a multicultural ecosystem of educational and social Web3 experiences. Please welcome Iris Nevins. Hi, Iris. How are you?
Hi, G-Money. I'm good. I'm really good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you for taking the time. I know you said it's the weather is a little crazy in Atlanta right now.
Yeah, it is. It's summertime, so it's rainy season, but it's doing okay.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. You know, in starting to do some background stuff on note taking and stuff for this interview, you know, I had interviewed Corey Van Loo, right? We just aired that. I interviewed him about a month ago, and we just aired it this week. And he spoke about how he got his start as an NFT artist in Clubhouse. And
Mm-hmm.
you were one of the first people he spoke with when he was being onboarded. And, you know, I wanted to kind of just, you know, before we start going into like your full background, just like what was that like? How, you know, how was the early days of Clubhouse for you and all of that?
Yeah, super interesting. I love Corey. Yeah, so I had started learning about NFTs through some college classmates. So Erican, who she recently launched a VC fund called Audacity, and then Kai Sheffield, who's the head of crypto at Visa. We all went to college together, and
Oh,
so
I love Kai. Kai's awesome.
yeah, Kai is great. So Kai and Erican were launching this group of like Black people in crypto, and they created this Telegram group, added me in it, and so that's when I first started learning about NFTs, because I had had a gallery at that time, an online gallery helping artists sell their work online, specifically
Mhm.
Black and African and Caribbean artists.
Okay.
And so we started listening on Clubhouse calls because it seemed interesting, but we weren't really sure like what to do or how to step into the space. We wanted to help our artists transition over, but we didn't really know how. So we were just on Clubhouse kind of every day, just listening, observing. And I remember Corey, um, I don't know, I think I saw him in a Clubhouse call, and I went and I looked at his profile on Instagram, and I was like, this artist is amazing. He's so talented. I DM'd him and was like, hey, let's get you into this group, this Telegram group, to see if we can, help support your upcoming drop. And Lady Fee was also in that group, and a number of other great people. So um, it just kind of a few different things all kind of like came together at the same time. And then there was a Clubhouse call where he was able to talk about his art, and then Ferocious bought a bunch of the pieces, and I think that was really kind of the initial moment that Corey's career started to go to the next level. I played a very small part in it, but I'm happy to have helped him.
Right. No, thank you for sharing that story. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd love to kind of let's go a little into your background of, you know, how did you how did you end up in Web3 and NFTs? But I guess also, you know, what your background was. You know, you're a community activist, you were a teacher turned
Yeah.
software engineer. So I think that's like kind of a unique story. And I think a lot of people would be interested in that as well.
Yeah. How much detail do you want?
As much as you want, you know, whatever you think is relevant, you know, like
Yeah.
I love hopping on these calls because I learn about so many different people as they come into the space, and I think it just helps re-emphasize that there is no one right path, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
can come into the space in any way, shape, or form. I also personally love reading like biographies because there's so many different ways to be successful, and there's no formula, right? And you
Yeah.
can go about it your own way. So that's why be as detailed as you want, because I'm sure at something will speak to somebody which will, I think, encourage them to come into the space. So that's really what I love hearing.
Okay, awesome. So I will start at my journey into tech. I think that's the genesis of a lot of things. So a few years ago, I was basically right after college. I graduated in 2014. Right after college, I went into education and community organizing. So I was a part of the movement for Black Lives in South Florida. Some people call it Black Lives Matter. There's, disagreement there. But we were doing a lot of protests, a lot of actions, thousands of people coming out into the streets. We were canvassing, but we were having a hard time getting people to go from like coming out and being passionate to actually contributing to the work of actually solving problems on a political level, right? You have to organize people. You have to put them in teams. You also have to vet them, right? We ended up having an issue with discovering that an undercover police officer had infiltrated our group and was attending our meetings and acting like a protester. So you also have to vet people. You can't just let any and everybody come and join these groups. So I ended up spearheading an initiative to really implement some like systems and processes and structures to be able to onboard people, train them, put them on teams, and like facilitate more collaboration in larger scale campaigns. And what I found was that it was just really hard it was hard to find the tools to be able to organize people effectively. One of the biggest blockers was actually scheduling. I actually, at that time, was looking for a tool like Calendly, which didn't actually exist. And so I was just thinking to myself, man, if only I knew how to code, I could just build the tools that we need and solve our own problems. So I started looking into how to code, realized you could go to these boot camps and learn, or you could teach yourself online. So I started kind of dabbling online through like free code
Which one did you use?
For the boot camp?
Yeah. For the online
learning.
Yeah.
So I used Free Code Camp for a while. I also used Udemy. Udemy was actually very helpful with learning like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then Free Code Camp was helpful for giving me like exercises because, you learn it, but then you have to remember. So right. Free Code Camp was very helpful for that. And then...
I only asked because I learned how to code in Python maybe like 7 or 8 years ago using Udacity. And I mean, nice. It was awesome. Like I didn't keep up with it. So I forgot everything that I learned. To your point, right, is like you need to like do the exercises and really just stay up to date. But I can't be a bigger proponent of those sites that are basically, you go at your own pace and they're basically free or very nominal compared to like a college education.
Oh, absolutely. There's a plethora of resources. I mean, YouTube is a great place as well. There's really no excuse aside from not having enough time to not, if you want to learn how to code, you really can without having to pay for a program. Right. But, I wanted to speed up the process. I knew that self-teaching would take too long. So I enrolled in a boot camp, went to San Francisco, did the program. So at the time I was living in Miami. So I moved to San Francisco, completed the program, and then got a job at Mailchimp as a junior engineer. And at the time, Mailchimp had just opened an office in Oakland. And so I'm working at Mailchimp. I'm loving it. It's exciting. I'm making way more money than I was as a teacher. And I start building this product, this like tool for organizers on the side that didn't end up working out, but I had started the process. And in that time period, I just became very attracted to like solving problems on an organizational level. So I ended up leading an initiative to like revamp our entire interview process. Ended up moving to Atlanta, becoming part of like the senior group of people that were leading different initiatives across the company. Eventually became a manager, an engineering manager, and then I became an engineering manager at Vox Media for a very brief period of time. And throughout that time, I launched Umba Daima as originally an e-commerce store. I had gone to Haiti, I'd gone to Ghana, and I'd gone to Zimbabwe. In all these countries, I would buy art from local artists. And I was always just so surprised at how low the prices were compared to the quality of the artwork. I mean, some of these artists are just absolutely incredibly talented. So I was like, maybe I can help them earn a higher prices for their art if I can connect them to collectors in the US and in Europe, right? So we launched this online store. That's the genesis. And then, of course, we meet, I reconnect with Corey and Erican from college and start learning about NFTs. And originally, we didn't really know like what the plan was going to be. It took some time. And even once we launched Black NFT Art, which was in February 2021, that was like our first project in the NFT space. The vision was to build community around artists, provide promotional resources and education, because that was really missing. Black artists were really hard to find, and if you could find them, they were struggling to make sales. So we wanted to help solve that problem, but we didn't necessarily know what the long-term view was going to be. So then next thing you know, an artist named Andre O'Shea, we asked us to manage him. And so we were, in that conversation, I was like, I'm not really, I don't know if I'm ready to manage someone. He was like, I think you could do it. I think you could do a great job. Please, let's just try it out and see how it goes. So we did. We ended up managing Andre for 4.5 months. We jumpstart his career in the NFT space. If anyone's not familiar with Andre, he's an amazing artist, just did a drop with the Grammys and Christie's. And so we're really proud to have played a role in his process as well. And since then, we've just been continuing to expand our vision for how we can increase diversity and inclusion in Web3.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question I have is, what does Umba Daima stand for?
Yeah, Umba Daima means create forever in Swahili. It was actually termed by my co-founder, Omar, who's really great with coming up with names.
Okay, awesome. I mean, I like it. It the way it's written and also the way it sounds, I think is a really cool term. And also it's like, because it's Swahili in America, we don't really see it that often. So I like it. It's a very unique name.
Thank you.
So do you still manage artists and help them with their careers? Like what's the nature and the composition of Umba Daima now as compared to like what it originally started as?
Yeah, so we don't manage artists anymore. We've decided not to do that anymore. The thing about managing artists is that you really have to dedicate a lot of time to one person. It's very intensive. It takes a long time to pay off unless your artist is already, making millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you're trying to build an artist from scratch, you're really kind of like a co-founder at a startup with like no money. And we just didn't have the capacity to do that. Also, when you're dealing with artists, you're dealing with very strong personalities. Everybody has different personalities. And so if you're managing multiple artists, sometimes their interests may conflict, right? And that was never really the original goal. We were just kind of testing it out with Andre because he asked us to, and we did get to learn a lot in the process. So we decided to really, really pull back and focus on more of an ecosystem level view. So now our focus is on building out an ecosystem, building out environments, building out communities, experiences, activations that large numbers of people can benefit from. Right now, we probably, help on a day-to-day basis anywhere from dozens to hundreds of people. And we want to be able to get into the thousands and millions. And so that means having high-level partnerships with brands, with schools, with cities, right? That's the approach that we want to take.
Right. That makes total sense. And so when you're saying you're building out these spaces, are you talking about marketplaces, or you're just talking about like stuff, things in general, like with regards to community and, events in real life? Just like, what is the scope of that, I guess?
Yeah, so we're focused on experiences. And so experiences are pretty wide ranging, right? Even hopping into a Discord and like having conversations in Discord is an experience that you're facilitating for a person or for a group. So we're focused on online experiences, IRL experiences, education, both short form education like workshops, as well as larger educational programs like incubators. For example, last year we did a 3-month incubator with 15 artists. We put them through a series of workshops. We gave them homework assignments, collaborative art projects, and at the end we did a big show, like a virtual show with a live launch party here in Atlanta. We paid for artists to travel and do that. So that was like a whole experience that encompassed a lot of different things. So yeah, we're really focused on like education through experiences, and we're also focused on art and curation. So we create art in collaboration with artists. We also do curation. We've curated for Rock Nation. We've curated for OpenSea. We've curated for a number of different brands, Afrotech, Black Dove. People continue to come to us to help them find like really talented artists from diverse backgrounds.
Right. And so would you, like, Umba Daima now today, would you say it's more of an NFT studio, like a creative studio, or?
Yeah, so we call ourselves a studio and a network, and so we're a studio and we produce art and we produce experiences.
Cool. So what are some of the more recent experiences that you've worked on lately, as well as what's the some of the more exciting stuff that you're working on that's coming up?
Yeah, it's a great question. My favorite question. So we were mostly online for the first year, right? Because of COVID. We did a few in-person events at NFT NYC and Art Basel, but that wasn't really our focus. However, once we did those events, we realized how powerful it was to have people connect in real life. So we launched a monthly event series here in Atlanta in February that's ongoing. We were able to get sponsorship from Dapper Labs for the first 3 months, which allowed us to really test out like what consistent IRL programming looks like. What does it take to not only like build out the experience, but also get feedback to get feedback and study and understand the people that are coming out and like what they're looking for, what they need. And so those events were a monthly workshop and a monthly social. So the social event is typically at a bar or like a restaurant where people can come and they can hang out, they can network. We had free drinks, free food, a DJ, dancing, like hanging out. And what we found is that a lot of the people that came were either creators, founders, or investors. Investors would be people that, they invest in real estate, or they invest in the stock market, or they work on Wall Street and they're like interested in NFTs, but they don't really know where to start. And we also had a lot of founders come to our events who have some sort of Web3 project that they're trying to launch, but they don't really have a community around them per se to tap into. So that was really interesting, and we've taken the learnings from that, and we're now in the process of planning a 1-year event series in Atlanta that will take the activations to another level. So we're focused on hosting concerts, fashion shows, physical like wellness events. We want to do an AR scavenger hunt in Atlanta where people can move around the city and do different things like in a physical way. We're looking at hosting events for kids where they can come and they can experience AR and VR technology and all the different exciting things in Web3. And we really want to plan the whole series out ahead of time so that it's high tech, it's immersive, and that we're also connecting people to brands and products and tools that can be useful for whatever they're trying to do in Web3. That's a blocker that we found for a lot of people, including ourselves, is that sometimes people have an idea of what they want to do, but they don't know where the tools are to execute. Right? Maybe you need to build your own marketplace instead of using OpenSea, but how do you build your own marketplace? A lot of people don't know that there's no code solutions out there. right? So helping to connect people to the resources so that they can be successful. And so we're really excited for this event series. We just started fundraising for it, trying to raise $2 million so that we can have some really exciting, amazing events over those 12 months. 24 events is a lot of events. And then we're also doing 3 events at NFT NYC. It's funny because that week of NFT NYC, we actually have 3 events in New York. We have a park crawl, which we're going to do a daytime tour of New York City. A lot of people, they come for the event, but they don't get to actually experience the city. So we're going to do a tour where we go around to different like historical locations, play some basketball, get some food. We have a private networking dinner for some of our token holders. And then we also have a party that we're doing with Web3 Familia, which is focused on onboarding Latino people into Web3. And then that same week, we have an event in Toronto. We have an event in Atlanta. So it's going to be a crazy week, but we're really excited.
Right. I think one of the interesting things you said there is an event for the token holders. So do you have your own NFT, like an official Umba Daima NFT project, or is it holders of tokens of affiliated projects that you've worked with?
Yes, we do have a token. So we have an NFT called Black NFT Art Rise token. And so this is a collectible, Black NFT Art collectible, which is our signature brand. It's the brand that most people know us for. It's the brand that's gotten the most like media attention. We've been on the news. We've been in like all these, publications and magazines. And so we launched the Black NFT Art Rise token in order to essentially be able to give people like a marker of their support for our organization and the work that we do, which is pretty much all free, the majority of the work that Black NFT Art does. It also gives access to a private collectors club, and in that collectors club, we have a private chat. We occasionally do like online workshops for our collectors, how to collect on different blockchains and things like that. We are now starting to do IRL events with this first event in New York City. And we also get people access to pre-sale spots. And we also use some of the funds to actually buy art from Black artists. And so every now and then we'll have a vote in the Discord on which art that we're going to buy next. So we're not a DAO formally, but it is a project that has been really fun and exciting. I think we have something like 160 tokens out of 500 left. So if anyone wants to pick one up, just go to blacknftart.co and you can find them.
Awesome. And how much is those each NFT?
They're 0.05 ETH. So which right now I think is like, I don't know, less than $150.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. No, I think that's really awesome of working together, like empowering the community, just very like grassroots driven. I think that's super important. Because at the end of the day, right, like we're all just humans living a human experience.
Yeah.
So even behind all the tech.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess one of the questions I have is, and I'm sure you get this a lot, is what advice would you give to those who want to come into the tech space that have non-tech backgrounds?
Yeah, I think I love that question. So I would say a few things. One is that you don't have to launch your own project. I think that's something that people do way too often. I think it's more important to listen, learn, watch, and see if there's a problem that you can solve or that you can help with. And if someone is already doing it, then I would say tap into that group or that community or even that company. There's so many startups. A lot of them are getting really good funding. So if you can go and become, a marketing manager or QA or product manager or community manager, social media manager at one of these platforms, I think that's a really great way to actually dive into Web3. You don't necessarily have to launch your own NFT or your own, token or anything like that. And then I would say if you do want to launch your own project, I think it's important to just take your time and build the right team around you. You need to have a team that can make up for whatever skill sets you lack. And if you don't have a technical background, it's really, you risk essentially launching a project that has significant technical flaws. And we've already seen that happen with a lot of projects getting hacked. We saw that with Aku losing $34 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. And I don't know too much about the team or how things were done, but I'm going to assume that if the leaders had more of a technical background, they probably would have caught the issue, which, you know what I mean? So I think that you just want to be very careful if you're launching a project that involves technology, like software and smart contracts. Just make sure you really kind of dot your I's and cross your T's.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know I recently had Micah on recently, and I know he has like some very technical people on his team, but I do think that there is some value to like double checking, right? Like checking, auditing or whatever it is, whatever have you, to kind of make sure that you have stuff, right? Because ultimately it is a very technical space. But I also do think that there is a lot of need and desire for people who are non-technical to kind of like get the job done, right? Because I know even within my organization of people that I've been hiring, like not, being a software engineer isn't necessarily like the requirement, right? It's like there's so many other positions out there, and you can still get into Web3 and come in and make an impact without having to be a developer.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I mean, most of our hires on our team are non-technical. We need project managers, we need program managers, content creators, social media. I think that the vast majority of roles are non-technical. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think there's also a lot of opportunity for companies to be more creative with the types of people that they're hiring. So for example, a lot of the people that I think are being hired to build communities or to organize in communities don't necessarily have the best skill sets, if that makes sense. I think that the people that I think we're not seeing enough leverage of educators. We're not seeing enough leverage of teachers. Right? These are people that know what it takes what it means to take a group of, 100, 150 people and effectively kind of meet all of their individual needs. And I think a lot of the times in communities, part of why they fail is because the engagement is only targeted towards maybe a small group of people or a certain type of people. But you may have people in your community that can't get up and travel and go to conferences, right? You may have people in your community that have kids or maybe don't necessarily like to go out and party and drink, right? So I think you got to hire people that know what it's like or know what it takes to build a community that's like truly inclusive and caters to a lot of different kinds of people. And the kind of people with that skill set may not be obvious, but they're definitely out there.
Right. So I think that brings up a valid point, right? Like, so because you host a lot of IRL events, right? How do you think IRL events can change the way we onboard people into Web3?
Yeah, I think IRL events are really powerful, extremely powerful for onboarding, because a lot of folks don't really have time to be online all the time. A lot of folks are busy, they have lives, and so the thing that excites them the most, or the thing that they typically make time for, is going out on a Friday night or a Thursday night or Saturday afternoon and kind of like doing something that gets them out of the house, allows them to be social, and then kind of go back home, right? It's like a one and done type of thing versus I'm going to be on Twitter Spaces every night, for hours, right? It's just not realistic for most people. And so I think the power of IRL events is that, one, the experience is more powerful. Two, you get to actually immerse people in certain types of technology. So being able to go to a physical event and see art on display or digital art on display on like massive LED screens is a whole different type of experience than from just seeing it on your computer, right? Or being able to go to an event in person and see an artist perform and then see that they have these NFTs that are related to the song that you really liked when you went to that event. I think that there's all these ways to really kind of just just have a deeper impact on people. I think a lot of people are driven by emotions. And when you have these IRL events, you can really tap into people's emotions. Like whenever we've hosted IRL events that people have attended and really enjoyed, I mean, the feedback is, this event was life-changing. We've gotten that kind of feedback around how powerful it was to be able to meet people IRL and talk about these things that they really care about. It's just completely different from talking to people on Twitter. So I think it's also a great way to tap into, again, a diverse group of people. Some people, have kids, some people have disabilities, right? Like there's just so, even if you look at like Black and Latino people, for example, Black and Latino people, we get out the house to party, if I'm just being completely honest. If there's music, if there's dance, right? We're not necessarily getting out the house to get drunk. You know what I mean? We're getting out the house because it's a part of our culture to actually dance in social environments. That's a huge part of our culture. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity that's being missed because we're not tapping into these cultures in the places that they actually exist, right?
Right. No, that makes total sense. I couldn't agree with that more. It's like coming, meeting people where they are, right? Like coming to where they are, where they're going, where they hang out, and helping educate them in that way, right? That makes total sense to me. Like, so to me, it's like Umba Daima is like kind of filling that gap in the ecosystem of like almost like meeting people where they are and being that educational tool that is non-threatening, right? Because to your point is I think a lot of times when people, I know I experienced it when I got into the space where it's just very overwhelming and like you don't know where to start and you don't know what to do, and there's so much information out there that you don't know where to begin, right? It's like trying to have that curriculum, right, of like the agenda of saying, all right, this is what you should cover first, and then you can graduate to this. So that makes total sense to me. How do you see Umba Daima growing from here? Like, it's where it is in the ecosystem and what you want it to be like, 1 year, 3 year, 5 years from now.
Yeah, I love that question. We've been doing a lot of visualizing, a lot of longer term planning. You can't really plan that far out, to be honest, because this space is always changing, and when you're a startup, you have to be flexible and able to pivot, right? It's more of like, in my experience, it's more of like playing a game and you don't know what's going to be thrown at you versus like I have this clear-cut plan and I'm just going to execute every component of it till I get to the end. So we've had to learn to be flexible, but we really want to focus on expanding our community engagement work to include people of color beyond Black and African people. We've done a great job with that sector. Now we want to include Latino people, we want to include Asians, we want to include women, we want to include LGBTQ folks. And so we're really focused on building relationships with people in these different communities and seeing how we can support them and leverage the leaders in these communities as well. So diversifying our own community is a big part of our goal. We also want to be able to close some really large partnerships with pretty big brands, as well as younger startups that are really trying to get off the ground and have a really valuable tool, and helping them get that tool in front of the right people that can benefit from it. And so we're looking at getting to a place where we have a really broad network of experiences and activations all over the world on almost every continent, where we're focused on prioritizing the US, Africa, the Caribbean and Latin America, and then eventually Europe and Asia. But we want to have essentially this broad network of people and experiences that are onboarding into Web3 and that are being supported by this ecosystem that we've built. And we want brands to be willing to provide the resources and support to help us, because at the end of the day, you know, I think that it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Like, we're onboarding people into this ecosystem, and the people who are ultimately going to benefit and make money are a lot of these companies that have these different technologies and these resources. So I think it makes sense to collaborate with us. We also realize that manually providing these kinds of services is really hard to scale. And so we are actively putting together a plan and the initial designs and prototypes for an app. I can't really give any details beyond that, but this app is going to allow us to essentially productize what we do and deliver our services on a much larger scale.
Right. Okay. Cool. That sounds really interesting and fun. I guess one of the questions, when I know you mentioned it earlier that you're fundraising $2 million, like, how do you plan on funding that?
Yeah, how do I plan on raising the $2 million?
Yep.
Yeah, so we're basically reaching out to a variety of different companies and leaders and decision makers at these companies. So right now we're focused on Web3 companies. Web3 companies, established non-Web3 companies that have a track record of being interested in the space. So for example, Visa, right? Visa, mm-hmm. I wouldn't consider Visa a Web3 company per se, but they definitely care about and value education and onboarding people, and they've done their best to really kind of slowly kind of become a part of the ecosystem. So, you know, there are companies like Nike, for example, or, you know, Gucci that are actively funding. I know that Gucci is funding a program for, I don't remember which HBCU, but it's a program to help educate people at historically Black colleges around crypto and Web3. So we're going to be targeting those kinds of organizations as well, and then we're also looking at ad agencies and PR agencies to see if we can work with their clientele.
Have you considered fundraising with an NFT?
No, we have not, for specific reasons.
Okay. Hey, can you share that reason, or can you not share it?
No, I can share. So when it comes to NFTs, there's just so much risk, and I think there's so much risk, and you know, when you are selling something where people, regardless of what you say, if people have expectations that this thing is an investment and that it's going to appreciate in value or something like that, that just places a lot of pressure on us, and it's a lifetime commitment, right? Like, we're essentially committing as a business to sustaining this NFT and the ecosystem or the services or the perks or whatever forever, right? And so we do have NFT projects in the works, but we don't necessarily want to tie an NFT to this specific project as the source of our funding. And we also don't necessarily think that we're prepared. Like, we don't have enough leverage, to be honest, to be able to sell out an NFT that would give us the amount of funding that we need for this type of project.
Okay. All right, cool. It's interesting. I think you could, just thinking about this out loud, is you could probably put like a term date on it, right? If you wanted to. And then I think also, I always think it's interesting with fundraising with regards to, it's not necessarily because it's giving you access to anything. It's more because it's like a badge of honor, right? Like kind of like a patch. Like, and I think of Ukraine DAO specifically, where you know, a bunch of money was raised for the Ukraine, and I got like, you get an NFT, but like you don't expect anything more than that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, it might be something worth considering. I'm sure you spent a lot of time thinking about it.
Yeah, we have, and we also don't, because we have some of these other NFT projects as well that are in the works. we don't want to kind of oversaturate our own audience with NFTs. There's also a hesitation because honestly, there's been very few Black-led projects that have been able to sell out or be successful, and so we're trying to be realistic about like our audience and our network and how much our network can like feasibly generate. And then another thing is that we have, in talking to lawyers, there is some kind of like legal concern around releasing an NFT for the purpose of fundraising, right? Like there's a little bit of like legal risk when you do that, from my understanding.
I don't know. I probably need to talk to a lawyer about it, but I guess I could understand that if I'm like funding a business and I expect money in return. But I feel like if it's funding for like education, let's say nonprofit and like community oriented things, and I'm not necessarily expecting any sort of return, like I feel like it doesn't. You still run into securities issues. That's kind of what you're saying, or that's what your lawyer says.
So you're probably right that if there's no promise of anything, right? Like the goblin, what is it? The goblins, is it goblin?
Goblin Town?
Yeah, Goblin Town. If there's no promise of anything, that's how you kind of eliminate your risk entirely. And so you're probably right that there's a way that we could do it without any risk. But there's still going to be criticism. There's still, what if we take 6 months instead of 3 months to deliver on something, launching this program or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like once you raise a lot of money, people immediately are looking at you with like a microscope or whatever you call it. And so, yeah, you definitely have me thinking.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. I mean, it's definitely something to think about, especially since you're in the NFT space. I think it'd be a cool way to kind of mess around with funding mechanisms. I'm always interested in people using NFTs in new ways. Not that that's necessarily new or novel, as I think people have done fundraising with it, but it's just something to consider. I want to be cognizant of your time. If you could share with us where people can find out more information about you and Umba Daima, what are the best places for them to go to?
Yeah, so umbadaima.com. That's UMBADAIMA. M is in mom. So umbadaima.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter. Umba Daima, that's our handle everywhere pretty much. If you just type our name in Google or type my name, Iris Nevins, I promise you all of our stuff will come up. We've gotten enough press that it's pretty easy to find us. If you want to find Black NFT art, that's the exact handle. Black NFT art, we're the first to come up on Google. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter. And I would say for our Atlanta events, or for our events in general and kind of our entire ecosystem and what we're up to, the best way to stay updated is to subscribe to our newsletter. We send out updates every week on all of our events. We have opportunities that come to us regularly for artists. For example, like Essence Festival, which is this huge festival that happens every year, and I think it's New Orleans. I think it's mainly for Black women. They just reached out wanting help with curating some artists for that festival. So we regularly post opportunities to our newsletter, and not just for Black artists, for all types of artists. So definitely tap in to our network, join our Discord, hang out with us, come to our events, buy a Rise token. We're gonna have a private dinner on June 22nd in New York City at a really nice nightclub/lounge. We'll have a dinner and then it'll open up to an after party at the end. So I think that'll be a great networking opportunity as well. And yeah, we're here. We're doing lots of stuff.
Cool. Awesome. And before I let you go, what is your favorite NFT?
Wow, that's a good question. That's hard. I would say my favorite My favorite avatar project in terms of the art is probably that I've collected. Is probably Crypto Chicks. I actually really like the artwork for Crypto Chicks. I also really like the Wanderers. I like that artwork. But I mean, my favorite art is one of one art. And so there's an artist named Wild Alps. She's a photographer in Switzerland, and her photography is absolutely mind-blowing. I love it. I wish that I could have it all over my house. I was able to collect one of her one-of-one pieces a few months ago. I don't remember the name, but it's one of my favorite pieces. And then I also collected from an artist named Stefan Lotus. He's actually a local artist here in Atlanta, and a lot of his work is galaxy themed and space themed, and I think he's probably one of the most undervalued talent in the space. He's not the best at marketing himself, which I think he knows, but it's funny because sometimes the best artists are the ones that don't really market themselves that weird, but his art is amazing.
Okay, cool. I'll make sure to check that out. But yeah, I mean, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for taking the time, especially as you've been surrounded by thunderstorms. So hopefully that clears up for you tonight. But yeah, Iris, thank you for coming on, and looking forward to everything you guys are working on.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the platform and the space.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right.
I'll see you guys later.
Bye, everybody.